Y'all ready? Let's go. What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Micca, and you're watching the Red Cup Podcast, where truth, pop culture, and politics meet. What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Micca, and you're back for another Red Cup Talks, because y'all know when we got the Red Cup, we're about to spill that truth. It's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Sorry, couldn't be happy Monday, but I was, fixing up the new studio that we're in. Let me know if you like it. Like, comment, and subscribe, and comment down below and let me know what you think of the new studio. So I wanted to come on here today and talk about people versus the polls, okay? So let's get right into it. You know my segment, my opening. Shots. So here's my opening. Women lie, men lie, the numbers don't, okay? The numbers right now are fluctuating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? And they show a lot of different things, but what I wanted to focus on, one of the things that they show is that there's a divide in and I do mean every identity that you can think about. Young, old, black, white, men, women, gay, straight, I don't know, wherever you can find one, it is there, right? And all of those in this election are going to determine whether or not Donald Trump or Kamala Harris gets into the White House, okay? Now, the thing about all of that is it shouldn't matter, right? It shouldn't matter if you're young, you're old, you're gay, straight, white, black, and indifferent. But it does, and especially in this country, because everything is promoted by identity. What do you identify with? A label. What do you call yourself, right? So it's marketed that way. But let's be clear, we're all fighting for the same thing. And so what I wanted to give in this opening is I wanted to give you guys the notion that it does not have to be this way. You can start telling these politicians to talk about the things that matter to us as a nation, as Americans, right? But unfortunately, that will never happen. Or let me rephrase it. That won't happen anytime soon. So what we got right now is identity politics. And I wanted to focus on the real polls, meaning what are the people saying on the ground? Right? What are they saying? What's going on with them that they feel a certain way, So I wanted to get into the polls per different groups and see what they're actually saying and see if it lines up with what the polls are saying. So let's jump right into it. Here we go. All right, so let's start here. Let's pour it up with the undecided voters. And let's see what they're saying in the new and latest polls that are out via CNN. All right, here we are. Let's go.
A 2024 lead, while some national polls show support for Vice President Harris ticking up following her debate with former President Trump, a new CNN poll of polls finds the race is still essentially locked in a tie with no clear leader. And much more importantly, in the critical battleground states that will decide who actually wins control of the White House, new polls in those swing states show Donald Trump with a slight advantage in the Sun Belt. CNN's Harry Enton is live at the Magic Wall First in New York. Harry, walk us through the numbers.
Yeah, I care a lot more about these Sun Belt battleground states than I do that national polling leader, because the fact is it's the Electoral College. So let's take a look at where we are in these Sun Belt battleground states. And you can see a lot more red on your screen. In fact, there is no blue on your screen. Arizona, Donald Trump up by 5 points. Georgia, we're characterizing it as no clear leader, but he's got 4 points ahead of Kamala Harris. And in the great state of North Carolina, it's Donald Trump by 3 points. Again, no clear leader. I should note that these results are a little bit more Republican leaning than the averages are in these states. But even in the averages, they all show Donald Trump slightly ahead in these three pivotal battleground states, two of which Joe Biden carried last time around, Arizona and Georgia.
So listen to that, right? Joe Biden carried Arizona and Georgia. And Donald Trump's up 5 in Arizona and up 4 in Georgia. 2 states that Joe Biden carried. He's turned red. Okay.
When you drill down into the data, what are some of the factors that explain why these numbers are friendly to Donald Trump?
Yeah, why are they? Let's dig deep down into those crosstabs, all right? I think this will give you an indication why. All right, what's the most important issue for determining your November vote? And this is Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and average. Look at what's number one, the economy / inflation, 31%. That's a great issue for Donald Trump. He's always led on the economy and inflation. How about immigration? Issue number 2, 16%. Another great issue for Donald Trump. Only when we get down here to abortion at 16% is where Kamala Harris does particularly well. So 2 of the 3 top issues are issues on which Donald.
And that's not good, right? So Kamala Harris is only good on abortion, meaning that most people, if they're for abortion, they think Kamala Harris is strong on that, right? Because she's been running on that. So I could understand why she's going to lead in that. But the rest of it, she's in office right now. And the economy, she's not winning in. And immigration, she's definitely not winning in. Borders are. Okay. That totally messed her up, being the border czar and not knowing anything about the border, not going down there, not doing something about immigration. And please don't give me that, oh, she tried to pass a bill in the last hour. It literally, even Democrats said, why would you introduce something, 3 to 6 months ahead of an election? Because you're only putting it out because you know it will affect you in election time. You could have been done it, but you didn't do it. I wonder why.
Donald Trump does better than Kamala Harris. So not much of a surprise that he's leading in the poll. How about this? I think this is really interesting. All right, choice for president, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. All right, Hispanic voters. 4 years ago, Joe Biden won that vote 66% in the Sun Belt. Look at where we are now. Kamala Harris at just 52%. So Kamala Harris struggling among Hispanic voters. Donald Trump doing considerably better than he did 4 years ago. How about?
And that's because, okay, so my dad's family is Cuban. And I'm going to tell you that Hispanic voters tend to vote Republican. Okay, like because a lot of the Hispanic community have businesses and have independent jobs that they make a lot of money from that support their families. And so being overtaxed, being not able to do certain types of jobs and a loss in the job market, that doesn't really bode well for a lot of Hispanic voters. So you have that factor here, as well as she's not speaking to policies that Hispanic voters can lean their hats on. So that's another thing there.
Black voters. Kamala Harris, again, leading here by a significant margin, right? She's getting 83% of that vote, but that is significantly short of Joe Biden's 92%. So the bottom line is in the Sun Belt, which is...
And we'll talk about that later because Black voters, okay, overwhelmingly, if not damn near all, vote Democratic. And here we are with Kamala Harris at 83%. That is a large chunk, okay, that Trump got. If he got that 8% and now he has, another 10%, that's what, 13%? Yeah, come on. Like, you gotta look, I'm sorry, that's like 18%. Yeah, that's going to affect a lot of things. And I assure you, this is male. This is probably Black male voters. Okay? This is probably Black male voters because women usually sway Democratic. But that's a big problem.
Much more diverse than the northern battleground states up in the Great Lakes. Kamala Harris is struggling among voters of color, Jake.
And Harry, as you know, and obviously it all comes down to the Electoral College. The magic number is 270. If Harris is able to hold on to those blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Trump continues to maintain his advantage in the Sun Belt, what do we get?
Oh, my goodness. Look how close this race is. 276 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 262 because she carries these Great Lake battleground states, even if she loses in North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. But the bottom line is this, Mr. Tapper. This race is way too close to call based upon the polling that I currently see.
Wait, Harry, why do you have Nevada blue?
Why? Because that is the polling average is Nevada is blue by, get this, by a single percentage point. It's the one Sun Belt state in which Kamala Harris currently holds any sort of advantage. But even there, it's way too close to call, as our dear friend John Ralston would like to say.
Yeah, I don't know that I buy that. Harry,
you don't buy it. You don't buy it. We're going to have to come back on and we'll talk about it a little bit more.
You have an open invitation. What happens if you turn Nevada red? Can you do that?
I can turn Nevada red. And guess what happens if we turn Nevada red? Kamala Harris gets exactly 270 electoral votes. So she would still win in this scenario if you turn Nevada red, because she wins, of course, in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, which at this point looks like it's going to maintain its blueness because the statewide law is going to maintain that it gives an electoral vote to the winner of each of those congressional districts.
We'll talk more about that in a little bit with the guy trying to change the law in Nebraska, Harry Enton at the Magic Wall. Thanks.
Okay, so they're saying that nationally it's too close to call, right? So they're basically neck and neck. All right. So now we're going to go poll by poll in different identities. Okay. So we're going to do young voters first, and preferably young men. We're going to see what the polls are saying right now, and then what the people are saying. Okay. Here we go.
Let's turn now to the director of the Polling Institute of Politics at Harvard University, MSNBC contributor John Della Volpe. He has a new survey out just this morning of young voters and the issues that matter most to them. John, always great to see you. Before we get specifically into those issues, let's just look among young voters at the general election in your new survey. And remind people what age voters we're talking about, and then we'll show the number here.
Sure thing. We're talking about young voters under the age of 30, 18 to 29-year-old voters. Let's remember, Willie, this is the group that turned out in record numbers in 2020 and overwhelmingly supported Joe Biden. And many people believe that's the reason that he was elected president. We can see here a dramatic shift over the last several months. He is winning. Kamala Harris is leading Trump by 32 points among likely voters. And just several months ago, Joe Biden in the same position was leading by only 13 points. In fact, over the summertime, I had some polling. I looked at other polling where Donald Trump was actually leading the Democrat candidates in the battleground states. So this is a massive, significant vibe shift just in the last several months.
And we'll talk about what's going into that big shift. Let's take a look at the next one, which is, do you have a favorable or unfavorable view of these people listing the candidates and their vice presidential running mates? What do you see here?
You can see here clearly blue and red. That blue and red isn't because of Democrats and Republicans only. It's because of being kind of above water or underwater. And what you can see here is both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are underwater by 28 to 30 percentage points. You know, only less than 33 out of 10 people have favorable views of them. Well, as Tim Walz is not incredibly well known yet, but he's plus 14, as is Kamala Harris at plus 5, close to 50%. Not only that, but her job approval is up 12 points in the last couple of months as well.
Yeah, John, when you look at the difference there, Joe Biden was at the top of the ticket. If we can put that back up, yeah. Biden 19 points underwater among young voters. Kamala Harris with a 5-point edge in favorability.
Yeah, and that was a real concern among Democrats, that Biden, who did so well with young voters in 2020, simply wasn't resonating this time around. The thought was, some of it might have been the war in Gaza, some of it was simply, he's too old, he's out of touch, he doesn't understand me right now. That has now changed. That Vice President Harris, just 59 years old, a couple decades younger, is atop the ticket.
Okay, so they're telling you that Joe Biden did really well the last election with young voters, and now Kamala is doing well with young voters. Okay, so let's see if that matches up with what young people are saying.
Today is going to be the most important stream I've ever done, first of all.
When former President Donald Trump was interviewed last month on Aiden Ross's show, he said it was his sons who tipped him off to the streaming star.
They told me about how big Barron.
Yeah.
He said, Dad, he's really big.
Barron was right. That segment got hundreds of thousands of views on the popular live stream platform Kick, over 2.5 million more on YouTube. But it's another group of young men the former president is trying to impress.
You can't vote for Kamala and be a real man.
Some are calling it the bro vote. Trump drawing support in large numbers from young, mostly white men ages 18 to 29. The Republicans hope will have a major influence in this election.
They really focus not on the policy, but on the personality.
Team Trump knows it and is leaning in.
There's a lot of social dogma about what it means to be a Trump supporter on a college campus, and I'm doing everything I can to helpfully mobilize my friends.
Trump has shown that he's able to run the country better than Biden has.
For their parents, it may be Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity, but this generation increasingly gets their information from social media on everything from the economy to the border.
I hear like how many families it affects. And that's what I see most about on Twitter and Instagram.
This is a group that has come of age during COVID, where they spent a lot of time online, on social media. They were hearing echoes of Trump's version of masculinity on one side and conspiracy theories, government not doing their job.
Online juggernauts like the Nelk Boys, popular with young men, have evolved from hyper-sexualized, prank-only content to political commentary, drawing huge numbers of eyeballs. Following his felony conviction in New York, the former president's first appearance, a UFC fight. It's also where Trump created his first TikTok, debuting on the platform he once promised to ban. Shortly after, he appeared with Uber YouTuber Logan Paul, tapping into his 23 million plus subscribers in a conversation full of catnip for the faithful audience.
Unidentified aerial phenomena in the sky. We don't know what they are. Do you?
It's very possible.
Former President Trump's show of strength following an assassination attempt also resonating with his base.
This situation completely made him invincible.
And this year's RNC tailor-made to amplify Trump's bravado. But for all of the former president's popularity among young males, it's also highlighting a growing gender gap. Recent polling from the New York Times Siena shows in 6 swing states, young men favor Trump by 13 points. Young women favor Vice President Harris by 38 points, a 51-point gap. And the Harris campaign hopes the vice president's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, a former teacher and football coach with 24 years of service in the National Guard, may counter Trump's appeal with young men. The Trump campaign betting it's not enough.
You ever been in a fist fight, Mr. President?
Probably not.
To win the fight for the votes of millions of young men.
All right, Garrett. So how is the Harris and Walt's ticket going to appeal to them when all they talk about is abortion? Young boys don't care about that, okay? Because that does not affect them. What does affect them is their ability to not have good jobs, trade, college. Boys are down in college enrollments, right? And so you have to speak to those issues. It's not that just Trump is macho, because let's be clear, they don't like pushing the family, but the family is what boys need. A family, a strong male role model figure, right? So you can push all of this, single parenting all you want, but at the end of the day, they're looking for that type of role model. And even though she doesn't want to admit it, she went out and got Tim Walz and said, I hope Tim Walz can appeal to them. Why? Because boys preferably need that male role model. So they need someone that they can look up to. So the younger men are definitely, especially the younger white men, they're definitely going to decide this election. So let's move on here. Okay, so now I want to talk about, we just talked about young boys or young men, and now we're talking about still young men, but now we're going to talk about Black men and what appeals to Black men. Now, overwhelmingly, yes, Black people in general vote for the Democratic Party overwhelmingly. They put their hat in one basket for whatever reason. But my generation and, you know, the millennials and Generation Z have started to move away from that, especially young Black males. So I wanted to get into that and discuss something that Stephen A. Smith said. And this is what I mean by pop and politics go hand in hand. Stephen A. Smith is, you know, a sports broadcaster. He's preferably a pop figure at this point. And so he's very, you know, influential. And he's saying a lot about politics lately. Even though he is a Harris supporter, he still from time to time does get it right, and or does at least recognize stuff. So wanted to get into that with the Young Turks.
There was an interesting conversation between Stephen A. Smith and Chris Wallace, and it had to do with the increased support that Trump is enjoying in this election cycle among young Black voters. So while Kamala Harris has managed to increase her support among Black voters overall, polling still suggests that Donald Trump has held on to his increased support among young Black males. Now, according to the latest Morning Consult poll, which was published this week, they found that Harris has a 60-point lead among Black voters, with 78% backing her and about 18% picking Trump. Now, obviously, Kamala Harris has a bigger lead among Black voters. That's clear. But it's also clear that according to not just this poll, but several polls, Donald Trump has managed to increase his support among young Black male voters.
And let's be clear, Kamala Harris does not have a lead with Black men because Black men support her. Black people in general have been for the last 50, 60 years voting Democrat, okay? So that's all they know. That's what they were raised upon. But like I said, my generation and the Gen Z generation, we need tangibles. All that, hey, I did something 50, 60 years ago, it's not gonna work because the economy is struggling right now. We need it right now. So I think you're about to see something real particular in this election, especially with Black men.
So just for comparison's sake, let's take a look at what happened in 2020. So Black voters remained overwhelmingly loyal to the Democratic Party in 2020, voting 92% for Biden and 8% for Donald Trump. But keep in mind that Donald Trump in that election had increased his support among Black voters and Latino voters, by the way. And so Biden's share of votes by Black people actually ended up decreasing by 3 percentage points compared to Hillary Clinton in 2016. Okay, so Democrats keep losing support among Black voters. And if you want to like even be even more precise, the demographic is young Black males. Okay, so you guys get the point.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because
so you can clearly see that Black males are slowly but surely leaving. And that's because a lot of the policies don't speak to Black boys. I don't know why they don't get this, but they clearly don't.
Chris Wallace asked Stephen A. Smith, like, what do you think is happening here? Why do you think Trump is doing relatively well with young Black men? And Stephen A. Smith responds and says, I think that it's a combination of the disgust and the absence of trust that an abundance of people, not just Black males, but an abundance of people in America have with Capitol Hill. All right, so I want to pause right there because I think he really did hit the nail on the head. I think that Donald Trump is the middle finger manifested in human form. And
and honestly, I agree with it because the politicians that we have are atrocious. Like, they're very atrocious. So you got to think, Black men, right, have been voting Democrat along with Black women, and they have not gotten ahead, not one iota, nothing. And so being that they're not getting ahead, what is the purpose for them to put all of their eggs into the Democratic ballot? I mean, voting down ballot, just Democrat. Judges, the attorney general, everybody, right? Your governors, everybody, stateside, federal, Democrat, you're voting for. But why? What are you getting? And I think the men are coming around to see they're not getting anything tangible for their vote. So now they're starting to split and say, hey, I want something tangible for my vote. And I think it's going to work because at the end of the day, they have to buy for your vote, right? If they're used to getting damn near 100%, like I don't have to do anything for you, which is the reason why Kamala said what she said right before. I don't have to do anything, because at the end of the day, you're going to vote Democrat. You're not going to leave. So if I know you're not going to leave, what do I need to do for you? I need to get these other people. And you're starting to see, that break down because you got Chicago uprising. You have what's going on in California. I mean, you just have so many things going on, right? And so, like I always say, pop and politics go hand in hand, right? When you listen to these people that are on television, whether, you agree with them or not, just listen to what they're saying, right? Because they understand the influence. They understand, where they can fit in. Stephen A. Smith is on a popular sports show, and then he has his own podcast. So you got to wonder, he understands who he's talking to. He understands his audience. He understands who he influences. He's talking to men, okay, men who have sons. So preferably Black men. So all of that goes in hand. But let's move on to the next point here. So the Daily Mail decided to go and speak to Black voters and have them speak on their concern. So this is what I mean by going on the ground, boots on the ground, and actually talking to people and seeing what they actually think versus just depending on those polls. Okay?
Again, a hands up. Was the economy better under Trump, or is the economy better under Biden and Harris? So hand up if you think the economy was better under Trump. And hands up if you think the economy is better under Biden and Harris. Right, okay, 7-1. That's pretty clear. Firstly, I just want to ask a general question about Harris. Then we're going to show some clips for the debate. What's your biggest hesitation about voting for Kamala Harris?
Just, is she going to be able to do the things that she says she's going to be able to do? That's, you know what I mean? Just, is she going to be able to do it? That's my biggest hesitation. Is she going to be able to get it past Congress? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Yep.
Mikhail, how about you?
Everything that glitters ain't gold.
Yeah, for sure.
It looks great on paper, but I'm not sure it could translate to politics, and if she'll even be able to get it passed.
Haywood?
My thing is her strength. That's my focus for her. And she's going to be able to take a punch and give one or two back. That's my biggest thing. And it has nothing to do with her gender, ladies. Okay. But we talking about the highest office in the land.
Yeah. If it was Michelle Obama, I would feel totally different.
Yeah.
You know?
You can't be.
So if you listen to what these folks are saying, you have the gentleman in the front who has to tiptoe around women so they don't get their feelings hurt. Like, you want equality, but you want to have the blow soften. He's basically saying, hey, is she going to be strong enough to go at these other leaders? Okay, is she going to be able to do these things? Because there is no emotional state. There's a lot of things that go on that you have to be prepared for. And yes, women, we are not men. Men are not women. We don't have the same functions. Okay. Yes, we can do some things, but there are things that we can do as women that men cannot do. And there's things that men can do that we as women can't do. However, he wants to know, in her state of being, is she going to be able to do the things that she said she was going to do? And how is she going to do them? How is she going to react to certain things, right? It can't be the stuff that we have here in America. Oh, he said my name wrong. She called me this. She called me that. Like, it's some things. It's just not going to fly on a world stage. Okay. And then the ladies, they're just like, we don't even look. I don't have no confidence in her. If this was Hillary Clinton, if this was Michelle Obama, which I said before, they dropped the ball by not having a primary. One, it circumvents the democratic process, right? When you don't give the people the vote. But not only that, you didn't give yourself the best candidate. What is it? Kamala, you know, because y'all like to correct me. Kamala, she didn't go through a primary. They selected her. So how do you know she's the best candidate? How do you know, if you wanted to do the identity politics thing, how do you know she's the best female candidate? Stacey Abrams is out there every day. For those of you who are Democratic, why not Stacey Abrams? I'm going to keep advocating for her because y'all keep passing over her. Right? Or what about, like she said, Michelle Obama, somebody other than Kamala? Because I don't see her as strength. I just don't. And apparently they don't either. And they're Democratic voters.
Be weak and hold that over.
Yeah, like if you put her next to Michelle Obama, it's like,
or Hillary Clinton.
Or Hillary Clinton, it's like it's no comparison on the strength that I think Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton would have against her. They would eat her up.
How did Harris come across then? How did she do up against him? Hayward says that, you know, big personality. How did she do? How did she come across?
She kept saying that she's a warrior, she's gonna fight, but I don't know if you're as strong as. I mean, I get it what you feel, but I don't think you are as like a warrior, like fighter, like she says she is.
Right.
That's just my opinion. Not that.
One, she has no policy showing that she's going to fight for you. And two, she has nothing that she's done in the last 3 years that would make you believe that she would be this great president. Like saying that you want a woman president, saying that you want a female president has nothing to do with policies and your strength as a leader. That's not leading. And then if you want to take our vice presidency as leadership, you have open borders, right? You have high inflation. You have this, that, and third that we can continue to talk about. And it's not translating as leadership. It's just not.
But I don't think she doesn't care. And like I said, she used a lot of appealing to emotion, like anecdotal, like anecdotal evidence instead of like, you know, she used some facts, but just like to like appeal to people like, hey, you know, I'm just like, you know, to try to get people on her side.
I don't think the bar was set pretty high when it comes to that. When it comes to her speaking, I believe the last debate with Biden set it really low. So I believe she did a lot better than Biden. But that's pretty much what I got in them.
And they're telling you that Kamala Harris has a low bar. Biden had a low bar, and so does Kamala Harris. They're telling you, these are Democratic folks. They're telling you that they do not see her as strength, as a leader. They don't know any of her policies. They're like, we don't see it. Kamala ain't it. That's basically what they're saying.
They're both old. Biden is old. Trump is old. And we need to get some young folks in there that knows, you know, have an idea of what's going on now. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, it was several times where he kept like referring.
So, all in all, when you look at, you know, this video here, you can see the frustration with Black voters, which is probably why Trump is picking up so much with Black voters. And this is what I mean by speaking to them, going down there and actually seeing what the issue is. Not your Angela Rye, you know, I don't know what Black voters they talking about. I don't know. I don't know. These are the Black voters they're talking about, plus actual Black Republicans. because, you guys act like, like to act like they don't exist. Or people of color who are in the middle, independent, like I am. Okay, I tend to lean more conservative, but I'm in the middle. I am an independent. So at the end of the day, you need to go down and actually talk to people, Black, white, Latino, and different, because this is what's happening. But let's move on. Okay, so the poll before, we heard that Trump and Harris are neck and neck, all right, the national poll. But we also saw that with Hispanic voters, that Harris, of course, still led, but that number was down a lot from Joe Biden, right? And so I wanted to get into what Latino voters are thinking, how Latino voters are feeling about everything that's going on, and see what they're actually saying versus what those polls are saying. Because like I keep saying through this entire thing, the polls say one thing, but the people on the ground say another. So let's go ahead and get it.
1/4 of Arizona voters are expected to be Latino, according to data from Naleo Educational Fund.
This is a crucial voting block for the Trump and Harris campaigns. Fox 10's Nicole Christine joins us live with what issues are most important to Latino voters.
Well, good evening, guys. And I'll tell you what, we looked into data from the Pew Research Center, and it showed that Latino Americans were accounting for 10% of the vote in the 2020 presidential election. And we know that in a battleground state like Arizona, every vote counts. So this is a demographic that both parties really want to connect with.
It is Latino Americans that are going to save the country.
As part of Hispanic Heritage Month, members of the Coalition of Latino Americans for Trump joined Arizona GOP leaders to discuss why they're voting red in November. A couple small business owners from the Valley shared the impact they feel the Biden-Harris presidency has had on their pockets.
We used to own 10 stores here in the Valley. And then Kamala Harris came with Biden, and we don't have any anymore. Why? Because when the pandemic came, they opened all the stores, the big stores of their friends, and where they are very, involucrated. And all the little stores, no, they don't accept them.
Okay, so let me explain that to you right there. So what she's talking about is in the Latino community, right? Because again, my family's Cuban. In the Latino community, what you would have is bodegas, little corner stores that, or the international markets that you can go to, and you can get all of, your groceries and all the things that, certain groups like, right? And those are usually in the communities. But like she said, during the pandemic, everything had to close. But they decided to open up Walmart. They decided to open up, those big corporation stores. And so this made it hard for the small businesses, because these little bodegas are small businesses. And so she's basically saying that type of corporate cronyism took them out of business. They had 10 stores. Now they don't have any. You get what I'm saying? So I said this earlier when we were talking about the undecideds, national polls, and when they were talking about the Hispanics. I said earlier, Hispanic people tend to vote red because of businesses, family values, and taxes and other things of that sort. So those values tend to serve around conservative. And to be honest, Black people are very conservative as well. Okay, for the life of me, why they vote Democratic, I don't know. Half of the things that you would hear Black people in the House talk about is nowhere near a Democrat. Okay, I don't know. I really don't know. I can't tell me. But as far as Hispanics go, that is why, right? So that's why she's saying what she's saying. But we're gonna let it play.
Any business of
of want was affected. You know, if you're a concrete installer, you're going to think twice about spending money on your garage floor or your concrete staining your house. You're going to you spend money on your needs. So, true to my husband's words, the business went down. So I had to start another business.
So you see that family, her husband, businesses, the business went down. You see what I'm saying? So I understand these things, and I'm telling you that they're not going to vote for Kamala Harris, right? Like the things that affect Hispanic voters are not what Kamala Harris is talking about. Her biggest issue that she's doing the best on is abortion. Hispanic people have huge families, right? So that's not really a big thing. It's not really a big thing, right? Like they want to expand their family. Their family goes to their businesses and so on and so on and so on and so on. So this is not a thing. They're not worried about that. They're worried about the economy. They're worried about how they can keep feeding their family. They're worried about how they can keep doing their business. And you can't do it if you have inflation. You can't do it if you have, businesses closed. You can't do it if you have loans that have high interest rates. Like you can't do it.
In contrast, we spoke to a Latino business owner based out of Tucson who says the Harris-Walz ticket has plans for small business that he believes in.
Or tax relief regarding startups will be great, particularly to Latina business owners who are the largest and fastest growing in Arizona anyway.
So like the lady was saying, she was like, her husband lost his business, right? So now she has to start a business. So that's why he's talking about Latina
entrepreneurs, and that will really help them get going.
And that Univision survey also showed that cost of living, inflation, and the economy/jobs, they rank highest in issue importance for both Hispanic and non-Hispanic voters. Reporting live in Phoenix, Nicole.
And that is the issue right there. Okay. Okay, so this last voting block, I never saw them coming. When I tell you, I would have never thought that the Muslim voting block would be up for grabs, undecided, or going for Donald Trump. It totally surprised me. And the reason why it totally surprised me is because you have to think with all of the smear and all of everything that's been going on since, I want to say since about 2000, right? Because you got to remember what happened with 9/11. Ever since then, there's been this whole, thing with Americans and Muslims because of the invasion of Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, and of course, America invading other Muslim countries under not just Bush, but under Barack Obama. When Barack Obama got in, he invaded Yemen and some other countries, as well as drone strikes and so on and so on and so on, right? So America actually has, a problem with Muslims. But in this country, the Muslims that are here tend to be pretty much more on the Democratic side. However, Michigan, which is a swing state, which is a state that Kamala Harris is indeed needing, there is a Muslim mayor and a Muslim town that's all Muslim that's going for Donald Trump. And on the flip side, if they're not going for Donald Trump in Michigan, they're going third party. So I wanted to get into both of those. So here we go.
The mayor of a Muslim majority city in Michigan has endorsed Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren, why is this guy backing Trump?
So it's the Hamtramck mayor, Amir Ghalib, and he says Trump is, I'm quoting, the right choice for this critical time. And then he called Trump a man of principles. So they met last week. Hamtramck is a suburb of Detroit, predominantly Muslim. They even have this mile-long street there called Palestine Avenue. The mayor is a Democrat. The city was a hotbed for that uncommitted movement against Biden.
The mayor's a Democrat.
Biden. Trump says, look, he got this mayor's support, maybe the city's support, because the world was at peace when he was president. And guess what? He returns to Michigan for the 11th time on Friday, the day after their absentee ballots become available. So
you hear that, right? You hear the mayor who's a Democrat, and he's Muslim, and he has supported Donald Trump. Strictly off the fact that he does not want to be in wars and other economical things. But I just thought this was very interesting. So now let's get it on the flip side with the third party candidates.
A poll surveying Muslim voters in Michigan found that many are moving away from Vice President Kamala Harris and supporting Green Party nominee Jill Stein this November. The poll conducted by the Council on American Islamic Relations showed Stein had 40% support of Muslim voters in Michigan, Donald Trump had 18% support, and Harris had 12%. The poll also found Stein was leading Harris among Muslim voters in Arizona and Wisconsin, key battleground states. A Reuters report stated the uncommitted national movement said it would not back Harris even though it opposes Trump and won't recommend a third-party vote. It said Trump would accelerate the killing in Gaza if reelected, but Harris would not respond to its request she meet with Palestinian Americans who lost loved ones in Gaza and had not agreed to discuss halting arms shipments to Israel. The Muslim vote in these states could be crucial this November. Consider this: the uncommitted movement, which encouraged voters frustrated by the Biden administration's Israel policy to vote uncommitted in the Democratic primary, garnered 750,000 votes. That could impact states that have been decided by less than 1% during recent presidential elections. Michigan was decided by 11,000 votes in 2016. Georgia decided by 11,000 votes in 2020. Wisconsin was decided by 27,000 votes in 2016. The Harris campaign told Reuters it was committed to earning every vote and ending the war in Gaza.
So let's get this all together. All right. What does this mean? So when you look at it all, right, like what does all of this stuff mean that we're talking about? When we talk about people on the ground, we're talking about what the voters are saying, like what they really feel. Like you have to listen to that. Don Lemon went out and he started a man on the street and he's saying, hey, who you voting for? And they'll say, oh, I'm voting for Donald Trump. And he'll say, why? And they'll say, no inflation. And Don Lemon goes, yeah, I know you feel that way, but actually it's better. It's better now. You can't tell people how they feel and what's coming out of their pockets, but the American liberal media keeps trying. And even though Don Lemon's, independent right now, he still has that CNN mindset. Okay, he's not going to let it go. And so, with that being said, they're being fleeced, they're being fluffed. Hey, this is not actually what you're feeling because the numbers say otherwise. Like I keep saying, women lie, men lie, numbers don't. But when you put all those configurations into those polls without accurately putting them with the people, then you come up with what you came up with in 2016, a big upset. You come up with what you came up with 2020, I mean, it was such a small margin with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So you got to wonder, what are people doing? Like, what are you doing? But nevertheless, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think of the polls. Let me know if you think they're right, they're wrong, indifferent. Let me know. And we'll talk about it down in the comments. Again, it's your girl, Micca. And like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm out. Peace.